Good morning, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. I think I'm even down, but I'm going to double check it there. Hope everybody is doing well. We are doing well. Very thankful. It is always a blessing to have this opportunity, the ability. Thankful for Hashem, how he dwells with us. He is with us. He speaks with us. May this message be a blessing to all. And we continue to grow in our relationship, not only one with another, but also with God. So if you would, we're going to go ahead and start this morning. Let us all stand and turn to Exodus. So we're going to be in Exodus 1. We're going to hit the very end of Exodus 1, which leads into Exodus 2. And we will start now. So Exodus chapter 1 and verse 15. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Sephara, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, Why, when you deliver the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. And the midwives revered Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mitzrayim called for the midwives and said to them, Why have you done this, and kept the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not like the Mitzrayim women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives revered Elohim, that he provided households for them. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, Throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter. And a male of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. So chapter 2, verse 1. Verse 2, and the women conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of papyrus for him, and coated it with the tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and lay it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Let us lift up our eyes. Hashem, Adonai, Elohim, Most High, Elyon, thank you for the day that you've given us. Thank you for your love, your mercy, your tenderness. Thank you for how you dwell with us. You are in us. You guide us. We're so thankful for who you are. We do pray over this message. May we have a sound mind. We want to honor you. We want to benefit the people and bless them. We do pray. May these words be clear, easy to understand. We pray for the application in our lives for what is learning if we cannot apply it. We understand that we need to have tenderness and mercy, not only for others, but also for ourselves, especially in a growing period when we are learning, just to not give up. Continue to show the love, because the love is what makes everything grow. We're so thankful for who you are. Continue to lead, guide, and direct us. Baruch Hashem, hallelujah, amen. So we are going to start our message today in Exodus chapter 1 and verse 15 to get where we are going. I'm going to go ahead and say this before we read this again. Egypt was vicious, and being a slave is unimaginable. Okay? The word unimaginable means difficult or impossible to imagine, right? Or comprehend. As we see here, Moses' mom, she is a victim. She is a slave, just like everybody else in Egypt. We have talked about before, there is an image that we see here in Egypt. We see them as slaves, but we have went a little deeper as we looked into Egypt and what was happening to Israel there. And we understood that not only were they physically enslaved, but they were more often mentally enslaved. Because we talk about how they had grown in number, they were more than the Egyptians. The Pharaoh had looked at them and said, hey, they're more than we are. They might join our enemies in time of war and defeat us. So let's put them into bondage, right? So they became slaves mentally. How in the world can you outnumber a people and not think we could outtake them? Unless you had been suffering mentally, right? So that's our backstory. Egypt was vicious. Being a slave is unimaginable. It is not something that you even want to consider or comprehend. We see Moses' mom here. Eventually, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? You're mistreated, you're abused, and you just take a stand. You make a choice, you take a stand. Some people in Egypt were not like her, right? They just went along with the program. They just did what they were told to do. And even so, when Moses steps forward, some of them say, "Who are you? Have you become a lawgiver, a judge, that you would do this and we would follow you?" So they were still stuck in this mentality, right? So eventually you get sick and tired of being sick and tired and treated like a slave. So instead of just following and doing what they had asked her to do, what did she do? She took a stand for what she believed in. So we have Exodus chapter 1 and verse 15. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Sephirah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when you deliver the Hebrew, and say to them on the birth stool, or when you see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall put him to death. So the midwives were supposed to rush in, and notice that these are Hebrew midwives, right? Yeah, so they're Hebrew midwives, and it says that they reverenced Elohim more than they feared Pharaoh. So instead of just rushing in and doing what he asked them to do, they probably took their time, showed up after the kid was already born. What he was wanting is as soon as it comes out, you just take care of it, right? Before anything else can be done, you do something, right? So when you deliver the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then you shall let her live, right? But the midwives revered Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So they reverenced God, not doing that, right? No matter what he said, they took a stand for what they believed in. And the same thing with Moses' mom here. Sometimes you cannot change your circumstance, right? You can't change the Pharaoh's heart. You can't change the Pharaoh's mind. You can't change what he has declared. You cannot change your environment. You cannot change your circumstance, but you can work with it, and you can choose to stand for what you know. And you can choose to stand for your truth. Okay? So, they stood up. They didn't have to go up before Pharaoh and say, "We're not going to do that." They did what they wanted to, and then told him, "I'm sorry, they're lively. They're quick. They have quick babies. Can't come in there fast enough," right? So verse 17, and the midwives revered Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mitzrayim called for the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and kept the male children alive?" And the midwives made up a story. And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Mitzrayim women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them." So it's already done. They're not going to take the baby then and slaughter the baby. So he wanted them to be there when the baby was being born and take care of it as it come out, right? So they just say this and they make up a story. Why? To protect their integrity. So Elohim was good to the midwives and to the people, and they increased and became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives revered Elohim, that he provided households for them. Okay? And Pharaoh commanded all his people. So once he knew that the Hebrews were in on it, he took it into his own hands and he commanded his people. They're going to do what they want to do. Well, I've got to take care of this. Now I'm going to command my people to take the babies and throw them in the river. Okay? And Pharaoh commanded all the people, saying, "Throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter." So can't tell them to do my job. I got to tell my people to go out and do this. And a man of the house of Levi, chapter 2, verse 1, went and married a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. And then she could not hide him any longer. So all I can think of is he's continuing to grow, and now he's probably getting a little rowdy. You can't exactly contain or hide a child for too long, because eventually somebody's going to see. They're going to start crawling, they're going to start walking, they're going to start doing all kinds of stuff. Now, they weren't doing that within 3 months, but eventually You can't hide a baby, right? So he was a lovely child. She hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of papyrus for him and coated it in tar and pitch and put the child in it and laid him in the reeds at the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. So I think it's pretty interesting as we are talking about this and thinking on it and meditating about this, that Pharaoh says put him in the river, and she contained him and put him in the river, right? And God protected him on his journey. So, and it's so beautiful because you see how God directs and God takes care, and no matter what the world is doing, you want to honor God with all that you are and everything that you are and all of your substance, and just reverence God continually, and he takes care of you. Now notice how just her one simple act, right? Her one simple act of defying what the Pharaoh had said and standing for her truth leads to Israel coming out. Isn't that amazing? It's beautiful. So we see what's happening here. And she puts him into the ark and puts him in the river. And then his sister stood at a distance to see what would be done. So God takes care, right? When we think about this, right, we all have a decision. You think about Moses, you think about his mom. She could have complied. And she could have listened to the Pharaoh. Or she could have stood for her own truth, which is what she did. She didn't go up to Pharaoh. She didn't try to change his mind. She didn't try to resist and make a big show about it. She did what she did, and she stood for her truth, right? So now notice, as we talk about people in Egypt, we talk about being a slave and the mental slavery. Some people there considered themselves to be a victim of their circumstances, right? Some people thought that this is just the way that life is. We are slaves and there's nothing we can do about it. Okay? Some of the Hebrews were in mental slavery. And as we talked about, when it comes to chapter 1, they were more in number than the Egyptians. There has to be something wrong there. Where you can't think, hey, we can take these guys. We can stand up against them. There's more of us than there are of them. So they had to have this degradation. They had to have this degrading mental attitude that says, this is just life. There is comfort in being a victim. There's comfort in being a victim. I don't need to do anything because there is nothing that can be done about it. That's just life. We are subject to our environment. It's life's responsibility and not mine. That's not true. That's not true. You think about Moses' mother here. Well, he declared that. That's just life. I got to do it. Nope. You don't have to. That's not true. We are acting like we're just waiting for the winds to change. One day, it'll all get better. One day, everything will just change. We are waiting for the winds to change and not to adjust our sails. We continue to talk about that, right? The winds are ever changing. We wait for our environment to change. We wait for the circumstance to change. And we don't understand that because things are changing, it is calling for us to change. Because a lot of times you have no control over your circumstances. You have no control over what's happening in your life, but you can control the way you deal with it. Same thing, Moses' mom. Can't change what he decreed, but I can do something about it. And she hid her son for 3 months. And eventually, that one decision she made set Israel free. That's amazing. So, we are waiting for the winds to change and not to adjust our sails or adjust our sails. Our sails. So change is calling for us to change, right? We could be a victim, and we could have the victim mentality, and we could see and say to ourselves that there is nothing we can do about it because there is nothing we can do. Nothing can be done. It is calling for us to adapt. Moses' mom took a stand against the opposition. She couldn't change Pharaoh's mind, but she was also going to stand for her truth. The interesting comfort is we think we don't have to do our homework. We do. We do. We think that things are just going to change for us. But I tell you that God brings change, how? Through his people. That's what happens. And you think about the progress and the process of them coming out of Egypt, right? It wasn't just one thing that happened, one event that happened. It wasn't just the Nile turning into blood. It wasn't just the brimstone and the hail. What was it? It was a series of things that had to happen in order for them to come out. And if you look at the first three, I believe, they happened to the Hebrews, right? Their water pots turned to blood also. All the water. They tried to pour it out. Every bit of it. And then finally, they go, we get it. And then it only started happening to the Egyptians. And you look at the mercy of God, even in the livestock, when he says it's going to rain the brimstone down, he warned Pharaoh, he warned their people, and by that time, some of them got smart. And they brought in their livestock. So, this interesting comfort is that we think we don't have to do our homework. And you do. You have to study. You have to study. If you want to change, you've got to learn how to change. You've got to learn how to adapt. We wonder why change does not come about in our lives. It's because we keep repeating the same processes. And we're expecting things to change, and it doesn't. So, the interesting comfort is we think we don't have to do our homework. We are the change we desire. When we are young, okay, talking about being a victim, right? When we are young, we cry. And what happens? Mom comes in and fixes it, right? So we get that attention from our parents. When we're there and we cry and something's going wrong, we usually get on to the others. Why are you pestering your son, right? Why are you pestering your brother? But anyway, when we are young, we cry and mom fixes it. Mom comes and takes care of it. As we develop, we mature and we take ownership. We take charge and we get to work to make things better. You don't keep calling on mama, right? And we've had those messages about the honoring your mother and your father. Why do you do that? Because they are training you. They are disciplining you. And the way that we word it is you are disciplined young, that one day when you grow older and you mature, you have the ability to discipline yourself, to regulate yourself. And you don't always have to call on your parents, right? You eventually, a man shall leave his mother and father and cling to his wife. What does that mean? That they are creating their own family. So as we develop and mature, we take ownership, we take charge, and we get to work to make things better. We accept our circumstances, which is Egypt. We expect our circumstances, which is Egypt, and we expect people to change. That's what we're expecting, and that's not how it is. If you are waiting on somebody to change, you're going to keep on waiting. Because people don't change for you, right? People change for themselves. That's what they do. When they can see that there's enough benefit in whatever you're presenting, people change for themselves. So, we expect our circumstances, in this case it would be Egypt, and people to change, and that's not the way that it is. These are the exact things that we work with. We are working with our circumstances and the people that are in our environment. These things make us. That's what makes us. It makes us who we are. Now, you are in Egypt. Let's imagine this for a second. And you think about your circumstance, and you think about the people, you think about Pharaoh, you think about Egypt. We're wanting these things to change. They will not change. Either you can become the victim, or you can become the hero of your story. That is who we are. Right? This is funny because a lot of this is coming from this guy named Muhammad, and it's pretty interesting because as we continue on, this will all start to make sense, right? When you are at work, mommy is not going to come and save you. You upset your boss, you upset your spouse, you upset whoever. When you get into trouble, you think you're in jail, you made a mistake, whatever it is, they're not coming to save you. Okay? So it's time to own it, take charge, and get to work. Mommy is not coming to give you attention when your boss is upset with you. Some of us in the world are still stuck in this 6-year-old mindset of I'm waiting for someone to come and fix it. I'm waiting for someone to come and save me. We're in this 6-year-old mindset. We're in this 6-year-old attitude. I can do nothing about it because there is nothing to do. And I want to tell you, as we're talking about this in Exodus chapter 1 and chapter 2, she did something. There was something she could do about it. And she did it. She hid her son for 3 months, and then she still wasn't giving up. Put him in the ark, and set him on the way. She still did something. And when she could do no more, she trusted in God. Okay? So some of us are still stuck in this 6-year-old mindset, this attitude. I can do nothing because there's nothing to do. The guy's name is Mohammed. You can call him Mo Gadot. So he is a writer of groundbreaking books like Solved for Happy, The Little Voice in Your Head. He is the founder of the happiness movement. Okay? Interesting point. When we think about these things, we don't have to do the work. That's life's problem, right? Life just happens. It's just life, right? How many times do we say that? Like we can't do anything about it. Moses' mom did something about it. Can't change Pharaoh's mind, but your mind also doesn't have to be changed, and you can be solid in your truth. Moses' mom, she could either comply and offer up her son or say no. She could have easily played the victim of her circumstances. Pretty cool, huh? So, Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor has created, and this is what the title of the message is, the 90-second rule. We talked a little bit about this last week. So the 90-second rule is, and we want to give credit where credit is due, right? Negative emotional reactions. So things happen in your life, right? Talk about these circumstances. And usually we can either become the victim or we can become the hero. The 90-second rule says a negative emotional reaction can be managed within 90 seconds. So continuing them beyond that, beyond the 90 seconds, is often a choice of re-triggering the thought. So, Muhammad Gadot, he said, happiness is a choice. Okay. So, the negative emotion, the first thing that happens from the time the event triggers you. So, in this case, and what we're talking about in this event is you hear the news that he's coming to get your child. Right? So, this is the event that's triggering you. The time, from that time, you're flooded with stress hormones. Sister here, she just sighed, right? You felt that as soon as it's declared. You felt that. The time you respond, you react or you don't. So this is the process of what's happening. You hear the news, you're flooded, you respond, react, or you do nothing. The time your hormones are flooded out of your body. The physiological response is 90 seconds. That all happens within 90 seconds. Okay? You hear it, you feel it, you act, react, don't act, and then it's all flooded out of your body. That happens in 90 seconds. Right? So why do people stay angry for years? They regenerate the negative emotion every 90 seconds. Is there still a threat? Should we respond to this? You think about her, in her case. Yes, there is a threat. 90 seconds, and we talk about the ability to grieve, right? Things happen. The ability to feel is very important, right? When you have these emotions, notice these emotions, let it run its course, right? But then, every 90 seconds, you have a choice to respond differently. Every 90 seconds, you have a choice to choose differently. But we get stuck reliving the same things and continuing to be angry because when it comes back and the thought arises, we respond to it the same. So when it comes up, you have a choice, and that's crazy. Every 90 seconds, you have an ability or an opportunity to choose differently. And I think about that now. So, why do people stay angry for years? Because they regenerate the negative emotion every 90 seconds. Is there still a threat? Should we respond to this? Your body is saying this. This is what it's telling you. Then we repeat the event. Poof! You're angry again. Because you choose the same response. This is where, in the gap, things get interesting. You know what happens? In the 90 seconds, right? If you haven't resolved it, if you haven't thought about it differently, if you haven't solved it, this is where things get interesting. Our brains are creative and start to form scenarios and images. You want me to give you some different examples? I'm getting fired. My spouse is cheating. Everybody does this one. I have a terminal illness and I'm dying. Right? Your toe is hurting. I must have something wrong with my nervous system. Right? You just go off on this wild tangent and it does not even have to be true or real. This is that gap. And you know what? Every 90 seconds, if you have not created and understood this in a way that's enlightening, you will begin to create these stories. Every 90 seconds. And that's why you're digging that hole. You're digging the hole every 90 seconds deeper. Because you have not responded to it in the way that's appropriate. And everybody has those aha moments when you're like, I had no control over that person, or I have no control over these circumstances. This is what I have control over. I'm going to hide my son for 3 months. So, this is how things escalate. The gap. The gap is between the event and the action you choose. The gap is what you choose, right? How you respond, how you react. The gap between the event and action is the time to choose how we respond, right? And if you didn't respond well the first time, guess what? You got another 90 seconds. Pharaoh says, kill all the boys. And what are you thinking? Shock. You're shocked. Now we can choose our response. Give your child over to be killed or hide him for 3 months. What's your choice? Become the victim or become the hero? And you don't have to change anybody else's mind. You just have to make up your own. Ecclesiastes chapter 7. I do think about those old hymnals. I am resolved no longer to linger. I am resolved, right? All you got to do is make up your own mind. You don't have to change anybody else. But you know what's beautiful about change in your own life is that sets the example. And you give people the understanding that it can be done. But don't think you don't have to do the homework. And don't think it's going to come easy. Because if you've been doing something for so long, especially when you're repeating the same patterns, sometimes it's hard to break. But you know what? You've got to put in the effort and do the homework. There are things to be done, right? And it's not changing anyone or changing the circumstance. It's changing what's inside. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 10. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For it is not wise for you to have asked about this. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and an advantage to those who see the sun, and to see the sun, which means you're alive. If you see the sun, you're alive. That's what it's talking about. Wisdom is good for you as long as you're alive. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and an advantage to those who see the sun, for wisdom protects as silver protects. But the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. Right? So we're talking about being wise. We can choose to relive and create these wild stories. And this is what I think about myself in my own reflection, is usually we create stories about people. I create stories about people and what I think about those people and how those people are based on how they're treating me. And then I come up with these wild stories, and I get all these names and all these little customers. You just think all these things in your head about these people, and before you know it, the way you view them is skewed. And you think they are the worst person in the world because of the story that you have just created. But I want to tell you, every 90 seconds, you have an opportunity. It's that close, y'all. It's that close for you to choose a different response. We can choose to relive and create wild stories, or we can choose to respond differently. Every 90 seconds is a new opportunity for change. So, we talked about happiness as a choice, right? So this guy, Mo, he writes a book, right? And the people are reading the book, and he's getting good reviews on the book. I think he said about 10%, but don't hold me to that percentage. But he said people are reading the book, right? And they're really enjoying the book until it gets to chapter 11, where he says happiness is a choice. And people just fall off there. And they're like, what? So, people have problems in life occasionally. Not just life. It's not partial to anybody. It happens to everyone. And I even like that Bible verse, God is not partial. Life is not partial. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has good days. Everybody has bad days. Life happens to us all. Problems in life happen to us occasionally. It's not partial. It's not the circumstance. It's how we deal with it. Life's ultimate goal, right? The ultimate goal of life is Yahweh. Existence. That's what it is. It's the ultimate goal is existing. Yahweh. Never thought about that, right? No one will ever be absolutely happy. No one will. We'll never always be happy. And he was talking to a guy who had been meditating for a very long time, years. And he goes, are you always happy? He goes, no, I'm usually angry. That's life. It happens like that, right? So, life's ultimate goal is Yahweh, existence. No one will ever be absolutely happy always. You're not always happy. You're not. It's impossible. So why do we feel that this is a reality we can grasp? That we can always be happy? Happiness is a choice. And someone came back to him and said, well, what about depression? What about chronic pain? And people I know in my life now are proof of this, of what we're telling you. People go through chronic pain, and you can either be the victim of your life or you can be the hero. You can either choose to just stay where you're at, or you can choose, and he talks about making incremental changes. So he said, what about depression? What about chronic pain? What about suffering the death of a loved one? This, once these things happen, this is now your baseline. This is where you're at, okay? You could be the happiest, and that's why we're talking about Ecclesiastes chapter 7 here. We say that the former days were better than these. You remember a time when you were just really happy? And now we're comparing that time to this time. You're at a new baseline. You can't do that, right? He says that person is not wise. And we'll give you an example here in a minute. So this is your new baseline. If you are dealing with depression, chronic pain, the suffering of the death of a loved one, this is where you're starting from. Now you can choose to stay here, or you can make a choice to become slightly better. So Mo tells this story, Muhammad, he tells this story. He says he has his son, right? And he is hugging his son, and he loves his son, and his son is handsome, and he's strong. He is the type of son that everybody would want to have. He is hugging his son. That is his highest point of happiness in his life. His son goes, and it's heartbreaking, but his son goes in for a surgery, and there is a complication, and within 4 hours, his son dies. And now he is at his lowest point ever. And this is the guy that says happiness is a choice. That was his highest point to his lowest point. That was the lowest part of his life. That is his new baseline. He could have said, the former days were better than these, and continued to live in the past. The incremental bit, this is what he said, the incremental bit is a choice for everyone, and this is the wise choice. He said, for those that say, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, for those that say the former days are better than these, it is not a wise thing to say. We return to the places in our minds where we thought we were the happiest. You get an opportunity every 90 seconds. We compare our former state of being to our current, our former state of well-being. Hindsight is what? 2020. You look back on it, right? We are only seeing the parts that we want to. And you think about people who are in abusive relationships, right? They're in abusive relationships. They get out of the relationship. Why do they go back? Why do they go back? Because they are looking at the beautiful parts. Because they are looking back on the life of the happy parts. And they are neglecting the abuse, right? They remember the love bombing, but not the abuse. And we excuse bad behavior. So, people cycle back. We cycle back. Everybody does. We'll end this message with create a new story and become the hero. Every 90 seconds. The event happens, and it happens in a thought. The event happens. We feel the hormones. We feel the stress. We have an opportunity to respond, react, or do nothing, and then it's all flooded out of us. The physiological aspect of the emotional response is 90 seconds. And I think about that now. Every 90 seconds, you have an opportunity for change. Think about that. And if you want to say to yourself, 90 seconds. 90 seconds. When you feel that stress and the event is happening again, 90 seconds. God bless you. Shabbat Shalom.